A propósito. A propósito. This can be tricky. The pronunciation is a bit tricky. A propósito. A propósito. Okay? A propósito. So you gotta practice the pronunciation to, to say it naturally, because in Spanish, you gotta speak a little fast. Normal speed, but, if you say a propósito, well, it sounds a bit odd. I pronounce this a little bit slow, so you can listen the pronunciation, but to the pronunciation, but the natural speed, or the regular normal speed, will be a propósito. A propósito. Okay? A propósito. A propósito. Okay. So what does this mean? Do you know the meaning of this? A propósito. It means by the way, and also on purpose. Two different meanings. Very different. By the way. If you want to say by the way in Spanish, this is a phrase. A propósito. Okay? Or if someone did something on purpose, or is doing something on purpose, you can use this phrase as well. A propósito. Lo hiciste a propósito. You did it on purpose. Okay? So, that is very interesting. Let's look at some examples using a propósito. A propósito. ¿Cómo está tu familia? A propósito, ¿cómo está tu familia? This means, by the way, how is your family? Sometimes you talk to your friends and, you're catching up, and you want to ask about their family. Are they okay? It's a common thing to ask. ¿Cómo está tu familia? How's your family? I hope everything is well. Espero que todo esté bien, right? But, a propósito is a great phrase to just say, hey, by the way, how's your family? By the way. So let's break this down. Let's see how this phrase or this sentence works. A propósito. A propósito. By the way. ¿Cómo? How? Está is tu, your familia, family. So this is a very basic sentence, nothing different, nothing too difficult rather. But the only thing we can look at here that is a bit interesting is the phrase. A propósito. You can say this, just like you use by the way at the beginning of your sentence. A propósito. ¿Cómo está tu familia? Usually you use it at the beginning of your sentence. If you say, in English you can say, how's your family? By the way, right? Sometimes people use by the way at the end of their sentence, but in Spanish you want to have it at the beginning when it means by the way. A propósito. Okay? And then you ask your question. How's your family? How's your boyfriend? How's your girlfriend? How's your sister? ¿Cómo está tu hermano? ¿Cómo está tu hermana? ¿Cómo está tu novio? ¿Cómo está tu novia? Okay? But always you need to say a propósito before the question. Okay? If you want to say by the way. Now, let's look at another example. When a propósito means on purpose. This one is pretty good. There you go. Me tiró agua en la cara a propósito. Me tiró agua en la cara a propósito. What does this mean? This means he or she threw water on my face on purpose. So now we have a completely different phrase here. We're not saying by the way, we are saying on purpose. So when you want to say on purpose in Spanish, you can have the phrase a propósito at the end of your sentence. Okay? Here you have it at the beginning, and here you have it at the end. So this is a common thing to do. When a propósito means on purpose, you have it at the end. When you want to say by the way, you have it at the beginning. Okay? So that is very interesting. So let's break this down and let's see how this sentence works. Me tiró. What does that mean? Me tiró. Me is a common reflexive pronoun that means I or it means me. Okay? We don't have it here in this sentence. But this is a very useful pronoun that sometimes you don't have it in English, but you sometimes will have it in Spanish. Okay? So, me tiró, él me tiró. So you don't need él or ella, which is he or she. You don't need it unless you want to be specific. You can say él me tiró, ella me tiró agua. Okay? But in this situation, we don't have it. Why? Because it's probably not important. Maybe you are seeing what's happening, or maybe the person just want to say what happened and not who did it. You know, it could happen. But me tiró agua. Let's include agua because tirar, this tiró, comes from the verb tirar. And tirar, we should talk about this verb, by the way. It's really good. Tiró, I think we have talked about it though, but yeah, I'm not sure. But tirar means to throw, okay? To throw away something as well. To pull, if you have to pull, for example, a rope, so you can say tira de la cuerda, and that means pull the rope. So that is very interesting. Also, it means essentially that's the meaning, the meanings of the verb tirar. But when you're saying tirar agua, it's pretty much the action of throwing something, right? In this situation, water. So as I said before, tirar can mean to throw. So me tiró agua means he threw water. And essentially you're saying he threw water at me, okay? Because you are saying this in Spanish, me. So I got the water on me, okay? So that's very interesting. You need it here. Tirar can work with reflexive pronouns, so that's why we have it here, okay? So en la cara, en means on. As I said before, en can mean in, on, at, okay? So very versatile word for sure. La cara, once again, when talking about the body, the human body, you really don't say my face. You can say mi cara, and that's fine. But usually when something happens to you, for example, this situation, someone threw water on your face, you say la cara. Okay, la. You can say en mi cara, but it sounds kind of odd. So that's a little detail that you need to pay attention when speaking Spanish. For example, I can say, me duele el brazo. My arm hurts. But in Spanish, I'm literally saying, the arm hurts. I'm not saying me, but in Spanish, of course, my, but it's a common thing to do when talking about your body. Okay, me lavo la cara. I wash my face. And I say la. No, I didn't say me. Okay, so that is a common thing to do in Spanish. Keep an eye on that. So in this situation, la cara means the face, but it's similar to saying my face in this situation. Okay, cara means face, by the way. A propósito, and then we have the phrase we're learning, a propósito, and that means on purpose. So it was not an accident. This person just took a glass of water and threw the water on someone's face on purpose. So that's interesting. When you say on purpose, I mean, a propósito, it can mean on purpose. You're just saying, hey, this was not an accident. So it's very, very curious, very peculiar. And once again, guys, remember, if you want to say by the way, if you want to use this phrase and you want it to mean by the way, you have to put it at the beginning of your sentence. Okay? So usually you have a propósito and then a question. Okay? If you want this phrase to mean on purpose, then you put it at the end of the sentence. Okay? So keep an eye on that, because this phrase has two meanings. Two meanings, by the way, and on purpose.